everybody, and welcome back to our Year of Bulky Hats tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about the March hat, which was recently released. Here's a shot of it here. I don't have a full sample, but you can see this hat has a lovely textured garter rib brim, and then these really fun bobbles that really pop with the beautiful Germantown bulky yarn. So today's tutorial is mostly going to focus on how to do these bobbles. I do want to make a quick note that because bobbles take up a lot of yarn, and because the rib is a little bit smaller, the number of stitches cast on is a little bit smaller than for the previous two hats that we've been doing, you may or may not want to do a swatch for this hat. If you don't mind getting a good chunk of the way through and then ripping it back out and casting on with a larger needle, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. But they do make a note in the pattern that you may, if your gauge is off, you may not have enough yarn to make a pom-pom on top. But that's okay, because there's lots of really fun alternatives, including just a contrast pom-pom from some of the yarn that you used for your previous two hats. Alrighty, so let's jump in. I have already knit my brim with this fun garter rib texture, and then gone on to knit my 3 plain rows. And now I'm going to get to the first row with a bobble. And so you'll see the pattern here has both written and charted instructions. Again, I love it when patterns do this because you can use each to refer to the other. And if we look at the chart, just a reminder to read a chart in knitting, you start at the bottom right-hand corner, move your way across left ways, repeat until you get to the end of the row, and then move up to the next row and repeat. So our first row has 1 bobble in it. And if we look at our abbreviations, we can see the instructions on how to knit the bobble. So to make the bobble, we're going to knit, yarn over, knit, yarn over, knit into the same stitch. Then we're going to turn our work, purl 5 together, which is a little bit tricky, especially now that I've cut my nails. And then we're going to turn back and sort of move beyond the bobble stitch that we just made. So let's give it a shot. I've got my sample here, and what I'm going to start with is knitting 4 stitches before my bobble. I've gone ahead and already knit 1 stitch, and I'm going to knit 3 more. So I've got 4 stitches here, and now it's time to make the bobble. So to make the bobble, you're going to work into the next stitch that's on your needle. You go in, you're going to knit 1 and come back out. But unlike a regular knit stitch, you're not going to pop the stitch off the needle. You're going to keep it on. So we've knit 1, yarn over, and we go back into the same stitch and knit again, come back out. So now we've got 3 stitches coming out of 1. We're going to repeat again, yarn over, back in, knit, come back out, and now we have 5 stitches coming out of this very stretched 1 stitch, which is great because the next step is going to be to purl those together. So now we can take this off of our left-hand needle, and following the instructions in the pattern, we're going to turn our work. It's a little counterintuitive if you're used to working in the round. And now we're going to purl these 5 stitches together, okay? So I'm going to pop my needle in through the 5 of them. It's a little tricky. Just remember when you are putting all those stitches into that 1 stitch, to try and keep it a little bit loose so it's easier to slip your needle in. I'm going to wrap my yarn around the front, and I'm just using my fingertip to keep everything from hopefully not falling off the needle. I split my yarn, so let's just fix that real quick. There we go. All right, so we now have all 5 purled together on this 1 purl stitch. Okay, let's flip it around again. We turn. So our bobble is on our left-hand needle. We've already worked it though, and the yarn is coming out of it, so we need to move it over to our right-hand needle, and we're good. Ready to keep going. So now I'm going to knit 3 stitches, and I'm going to pull a little bit firmer on that first stitch after the bobble just to get it to really be quite pronounced. Knit 2 more. And there's our first repeat. So let's try that again. We're going to repeat what we did just now. So I'm going to start with 4 stitches. And now let's make another bobble. And let's try to remember to be nice and loose when we go into that stitch. So I'm actually going to tension my yarn a little bit looser than I normally do. And let's go in. So we go in, we knit 1, yarn over, knit again into the same stitch, yarn over, knit again into the same stitch. We've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. This can come off the needle. Let's turn and let's purl these 5 together. It's a little tricky to get them all together, and all I can say is thank goodness we don't have to purl 7 together. Here we go. Wrap our yarn. I want to tension it, slide it back through. Whoop. Did something funky there. Pull that over. There we go. So we're going to turn our work again. Our bobble is complete. Slip it over to the right hand needle. And then keep going. So when I'm working this pattern, instead of doing 3 and 4 regular knit stitches, I just remember 7 plain knit stitches between each bobble, so I don't have to keep counting back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. So we'll do 1 more together. Go into the stitch, wrap our yarn, come back out, yarn over, back into the same stitch, knit 1, wrap our yarn, and then go back in, grab 1 more knit stitch. There's our 5. Let's flip. We'll creep our needle in there under all 5 stitches. Good. Whoop. Wrap our yarn for our purl. Oh, that was beautiful. Come back out, turn around, slip. And then again, that first stitch after the bobble may be a little bit tighter. So it really is a pronounced bobble. Alrighty, so that's how you do the bobble stitch for the Ivy Hill hat by Courtney Kelly, the March hat for the Year of Bulky Hats from Kelborn Woolens. And you can see in this chart and also in this image that you'll have a plain row between every bobble row, and they'll be kind of stacked together to create these beautiful diamond patterns. And you'll see here that after a plain row, that bobble really does sit quite pronounced on the work. If you have any questions while you are tackling the Ivy Hill hat, please reach out. We're always happy to help, and we do have lots of March hat kits still in stock. If you love this color combo, and if you come in store, we can also swap out the color. Happy knitting, everybody.